All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this point we should have gotten through basically almost all the major features over here. Last thing I left you with was our nose. I just added our nose and I put a little bit more material here on the cheekbones. I've been very careful not to kind of screw up the things that we've already made. And at this juncture, the mouth, the nose, the eyes, everything is there. We are really at the final little bits. And, you know, it's some people thought it would never happen, but here we are. So what we're doing is I've basically recycled up all the clay that we used throughout our practices. And what you see in front of me is basically everything that I've given you in terms of material. So remember, all those practice pieces that we had before, everything is going to basically go into this face. Even with that said, you still might or should have a little bit left over. So if you're in a situation where you don't feel that's the case, you know, check that you didn't make something too thick or whatever. Now, if you don't have enough clay for whatever reason to completely sort of finish this thing out, well, then never fear. Just do the best you can with what you got. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to try to build up the brow a little bit. What I did was I took a couple of the quarter-size balls of clay. This time I've sort of rolled them down into sort of like a really thick sort of sausage, chubby little digit, and I've tried to make two of them. Again, trying to make them about the same size. Okay, we're going to have to build up the brow a little bit. With this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sort of thick, roundish shape, and I'm going to start pressing it down a little bit into my surface, just so I can start getting it a little flat on one side, just while still keeping it round on the other. I'll do the same thing to the other one. Again, we're making the eyebrows or brow area, part of the orbital bone, so we want to try to be symmetrical if we can. Try to be about the same size, about the same levels of flatness. All right, I'll take a look at those and try to see now how they're fitting. Okay. Kind of round them off a little bit. This is a little bit of a rough fitting. And what we want to do is we just kind of want to build up that area above our eyelid a little bit. That way we can kind of create the effect that, you know, we've got a forehead and got some thickness there. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to take that little piece that I've made, and you can see it's kind of round on one side, kind of flat on the other. I'm flattened out over here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of pinch down just a little bit on this edge. Make it just a little bit thinner. So if you're looking at my piece, see the kind of shape that I've created, flat to fit up against the head that I've already made over here. And now down over here on the bottom end of it, I'm kind of thinning out that edge a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to kind of start bending that piece so that what it's going to end up being, it's going to fit over top of that lid. Right? And this is going to be just to build up the forehead. And what we're going to actually have is we're going to keep that crease here, because that crease is kind of how your eyelid folds up into your eyebrow. So what I want to do is I still want to kind of thin this bottom part of it out a little bit. I'm just pinching, kind of make it a little bit sharper looking. And then I'm also trying to curve it just like I curved the eyelids. So imagine this thing is like on one end of it, it's almost like an eyelid, but the other side of it is still staying really thick and really sort of full. And what I want to do is I kind of want to just try to fit that like you see right over here, so that I still have a nice even crease. It's going to fit over top of my eye. You can see I've left it pretty thick because, again, a lot of that is going to go into my forehead. I want that sort of to pop out off of the face. The eyebrow area is part of our orbital bone. That orbital bone protects our eye by giving us a piece of forehead that is sticking out a little further from the eye, so we get hit here and not in here. You can see what the other side looks without it. going to start building that up. I'm going to work on the other one right now. Again, that inside that lower part, I want to start pinching that edge, making it just a little bit thinner. And a little bit curvier. I want it to sort of fit and hug around that eye. I might have to trim the middle part over here a little bit, but that's okay. I'm going to want to keep that crease over here. I'm going to try to make this just a little bit longer and a little bit flatter. Again, I'm pinching with my fingers. You can see everything is kept pretty thick. Down here is coming down a little thinner. Rounding it off. Try to just pinch this out a little bit longer. I'm going to keep the symmetry of my piece. We are at the home stretch and almost done, but that doesn't mean you need to rush this part through. There we go, and I see like my forehead, my brows are starting to come into focus over here. What I want to do is I want to kind of position them and get them in a spot where I have, again, I'm going to leave that little bit of the crease. On the bottom here, we smoothed it out. Up here, we're going to leave it, all right? But where are we going to attach this thing? Well, first, we'll sort of attach it on the side. Again, we got the little peekaboo sticking out. You can see how far it sticks up off my sculpture. And kind of a little bit of that in there. I want to blend the two of them together. Think about Anthony Davis and the unibrow. We want a little bit of the brow going on over here, so we want this all to be one piece. We're not doing hair on our characters. And then what we want to do is we want to kind of carefully just sweep that middle piece into the nose without sort of ruining that little creased edge. Kind of make that part of our nose. And sometimes it's just about being patient and just rubbing your finger over it for a little while. And then again, I'm going to kind of sweep this side into it. And we've got the start of the brows. They're popping out over here. Got a little bit of the forehead. See how they're sticking out in front of the eyes a little bit. Much thicker. I'm going to smooth that stuff out. And listen, if we can get past this part, most of the heavy lifting is done. Again, we're going to leave that little crease up in there. And now for the rest of this thing is we're really just filling in with what we have left. So at this point, if you've done it right, if you've done it like me, you should have a bit more forehead sticking out over there. It's probably going to be a little recessed, not as thick. So we're going to have to get some clay, some of the clay that we've sort of made, and just kind of build that up a little bit. You can see I'm taking, one piece aside. I try to fill in some of these places just by kind of pinching out these large ovals. We don't want to make them too thin. We want to start filling in here. Take a little bit. Pinch. What I want to do is I just want to kind of fill in the forehead. I don't want it to sink back. I don't want to look like a Neanderthal with really big, heavy brows. I just want that area of the face to sort of blend into the forehead, especially on the upper parts. So try to make the pieces that you use to kind of fill in, keep them relatively thick, but more importantly, like everything we've done so far, keep them about the same thickness. I'm just going to kind of smooth things out. look like Frankenstein, so try to blend in all your little creases and cracks. Just try to use the clay that you have. Use it all, as much of it as you need. I'm going to try to finish out this head with what we got. And again, we want to keep with our forehead, keep things relatively symmetrical, smoothed out. I made a couple other flat little pieces over here. Going to try to use them to sort of fill in the blanks on the sides over here. These can be relatively thin. This is just kind of like to fill in some of those gaps. And whatever little bits that you have left, you can always kind of use them to fill in wherever you're missing. You may not get all the way through to cover every last part, all the way to cover all the foil on the front side, but do your best. Try to get as much of that covered as possible. Even if the front of this thing is only like a mask, that is absolutely fine. And just try to look out your way to avoid lumpiness, especially in the forehead. So you might have to take some time to smoothen things out. But alas, this is our first face. May not be the most beautiful or cute one you'll ever see, but it's more about learning how to make these parts and then how to bring them all together. And that is semester 1 of sculpture. My little alien friend. You feel free to name them, give them a name, and we'll talk a little bit more next week about what we're going to do with them after he's done. And there he is.